Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Kayleigh McEnany is the new White House press secretary, and she's gotten off to a pretty strong start, stronger than I anticipated, including this closer yesterday at a press briefing where, a fungible member of the D.C. press corps tried to throw something at her that she had said as a campaign spokesman on Fox News. And she was ready with return fire. Oh, boy, was she.
Kayleigh, in a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign. And you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country. Given what has happened since then, obviously, would you like to take that back?
Well, first, let me note, I was asked a question on Fox Business about the president's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back on the media and ask similar questions. Does Vox want to take back that they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic? Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip, the flu is bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus? I'll leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days.
I love institutional knowledge.
And bye-bye. She dropped the mic and walked out. No, she was prepared. It was good.
I love it.
Remember we met her at the Republican convention?
Yeah, we've had her on the show. I love sticking it right down the throat of the smarmy, institutional knowledge-free political hacks masquerading as journalists at those press conferences. Generally speaking, there are a few exceptions, and I mean only a few. It's so good. And in addition to just the satisfaction you get from seeing the press squirm as she reads out all of their employers and how wrong they were in their pronouncements, the key is the phrase I mentioned, institutional knowledge. We can't lose this during the analysis of what's happening. We can't lose the history because the left is always in the business of rewriting the history. You have to remember the timeline, which is why President Trump repeats so often his decision at the end of January to end travel from communist China to this country. You have to remember the timeline. You have to remember who said or didn't say, who did or didn't do, and when they did or didn't, said or didn't say. It's so important if you want a real understanding of how something like this transpired, not just the outbreak, but the response to it. And if you want to be able to do a credible assessment on the response in particular. And so that's why I enjoyed this piece from Dana Cheng, senior editor for China News at the Epoch Times, who zeroes in on what leaked documents show about Chinese lab biosafety concerns. The Wuhan virology lab, of course. Internal Chinese documents, what Chinese communists were actually doing from late last year through the beginning of this year, and what the evidence suggests, so we don't forget how this all came to be. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Dana Cheng, senior editor for China News for the Epoch Times. Dana, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again.
Tell us about the documents you wrote about, internal Chinese government documents about the biosafety guidelines for research and what they tell us about what was going on at that virology lab in question.
Well, okay, maybe I can talk about the timeline, like what happened. The first person infected that the government has any document, that's November 17. On the earliest documented patient that doctors treated, that's December 1st. That's the first patient. And that's written in a medical magazine, Lancet. So In December, Wuhan hospital sent samples to a few companies that test genomics, like DNA of those virus. And the company immediately, like Chinese lab, immediately sequenced the genome of the sample of the virus and told Wuhan health official and the hospital. And that's December 27th. And so doctors on December 30th, 8 doctors start to pass information among their peers, trying to alert each other. And actually, by that time, the doctors in the hospital already know about it. They start to wear certain protections. But January 1st, the health commission official, the government health commission official, called the testing company to stop testing virus samples and destroy all existing samples. They wanted to cover up right from the beginning. And on the same day, January 1st, police also summoned, called in those 8 Wuhan doctors and called them rumor mongering. And this is announced on nationwide TV and saying they are trying to incite, they are trying to spread rumor and cause instability of the society.
And what happened to those 8 people?
One of them died. Others, we don't have information because all the information are locked down by the government.
And
CCP.
And restate again, and that all culminated on what date?
January 1st.
January 1st. And then we don't hear from President Xi making any kind of statement about the outbreak until January 20th.
Exactly. And 3 days later is lockdown. And the reason they announced that there's a human-human transmission is because some people travel from Wuhan to other countries like Thailand and Japan. People found out outside China, hey, something is going wrong there. So if not because this has transmitted to other countries, they would have continued to cover for a much longer time.
And so where do things stand in China now? What are we to believe or not believe? I start from the premise of not believing anything that's coming from the Chinese Communist government with respect to infection totals or death totals, or whether even not there is still an issue in Hubei province or anywhere else in China with COVID. What can you tell us about that?
You hit the right point. We cannot believe the number from or any information from CCP. And good example is Taiwan. Taiwan took the measure like December 31st, start to guard the border and alert WHO. And now they have very, very low infection rate. Their schools are open, restaurants open. And that's a good example. They did not believe in CCP, the Communist Party. Right now, the virus is still spreading in China. Beijing is very tight. And there's a northern province that is locked down. There's no one. The cars are locked down, like not allowed to leave the province, and people dare not to leave the province anyway because Hubei people, when they try to escape to their family in other province or try to look for a job after reopen, they have been discriminated. So the virus is still going on, and Beijing is very tense, and there are a lot of communities, smaller communities are locked down. Like you can go out, and when you come back, you have to go through certain process to disinfect and clean up, and there are limited like pass card, like each family have a pass card. One person can go out to do shopping, something like that.
And so is Wuhan then, is it being treated like a leper colony by the Chinese Communist government? Well,
in a way, they are greatly discriminated. the other cities, when they open a job, and on the hiring policy, they openly stated no one from Wuhan, no one from Hubei. Hubei is the province where Wuhan is. Yeah.
But based on what you know, you said the virus is continuing to spread, at least in portions of China. Based on what you know, would it be your suggestion that it would be a mistake for resumption of air travel from China to the West anytime soon?
Oh, that's very dangerous, and definitely the number for people in China that has distance from Wuhan, they say, oh, the number probably like you add a zero, like meaning 10 times. For those in Wuhan, they would say you add 2 zero, 100 times. And I can say even 100 times, that's an understatement.
What's life like in Shanghai?
It's still very, people like aware guarded. They
Was there a lockdown?
people try to stay in. Not strictly lockdown. Right now they have learned that there's a better way to lock down. In Wuhan, they lock down all the traffic. Now they allow traffic to go in and out, but they try to lock down the smaller communities and buildings, like a plaza and buildings. And if they are infection, they will announce within their community which building, which number apartment there's an infection. Everyone try to stay alert. They manage at a very small scale, and they are like they have a community manager. They report directly who's infected and the number of infected to the top, like local government. And the central government tell the local government official if they are outbreaking in your area, if there is an increase of number of infection in your area, you will be removed. So that kind of order basically encourage the local official to wipe out real numbers. Local official will not report numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. What's going on with the democracy protesters in Hong Kong, and by extension, the status of President Xi? Is there any possibility that President Xi may be made the fall guy by the Chinese Communist Politburo, and they'll install somebody new?
They not long ago they arrested like democratic movement leaders, and where the West have been concentrating on controlling the virus, they kind of try to take over Hong Kong more. Hong Kong people, really, they have sacrificed many young lives to defend their freedom, and luckily, and they are not as infected. I think any area that did not believe in communist world had less infection.
And President Xi's political viability going forward, any chance that he's made the fall guy so that China can present, we held the person accountable to the rest of the world and we installed a new communist?
No, I don't see that hope.
Okay.
Yeah, communist is communist. It's the same communist.
Okay.
Same communist as the Soviet Union.
Understood. I mean, so no glasnost or perestroika in the offing. Got it. Dana Cheng, senior editor for China News for the Epoch Times. Dana, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.